So let me know, how did you all get interested in the hobby? At what age, and what sparked the interest? And kind of, if you're PCing people, who you PCing right now?
Yeah, I'll let Oz go first because he kind of it one goes ties into the other. So
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's the same old story. Started as a kid. I believe I was like 13, 14 years old, seventh, eighth grade. And I was collecting basketball because I played all sports, but basketball was my thing. I honestly thought I was going to be in the NBA, growing up. I was like, man, you're watching Charles Barkley play and Michael Jordan and all those cats. And I was like, this is my sport. So obviously back then we were collecting cars, but we really didn't get the concept of it. We were just collecting them just to have pieces of Barkley and Jordan. We were going back. We had the the Locker series from back in the day, the Jordan, all that stuff.
Yeah.
What was big too back then was I don't know if you can see the Larry Johnson, the classic cards. So those were the things. Junk wax was what I was collecting. And then my biggest purchase, I remember, my cousin had told me the one time, my other cousin, Los, the collector, he was like, hey, bro, we really didn't know anything about hobby shops or anything like that. Anything that we got was, from Woolworths and just packs, no such thing as buying boxes and ripping. It was just maybe getting a pack if we were lucky. And I was working at the time. He's like, there's this dude. He owns a furniture place, but he sells cards out of the back of his store. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, yo, it's like 3 blocks from here. Just go there and just let them know you're looking for sports cards. I was like, that sounds kind of shady, but I'll go check it out. I don't know. I didn't know what was going on. So I got there and he's like, yeah, you looking for some cards? I was like, yeah. He's like, what do you need? I said, basketball cards. So he went to the back and he came out with this box here. I don't know if you could see it.
Hoops. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was the price he had on it for $75, a 1989 hoop set. And that was with the David Robinson, the rookie card.
Yep.
So this was like my first big purchase. I had to save up my money. I gave him like $30 just to hold it. Came back with the other 45. And so that was my main big purchase. Then went high school. After that, started college, went to Penn State. And I stopped collecting. And I'm 40.
We all did when we went to college.
Yeah. So that, I'm like 20s. So now I'm 40, 2 years ago, right when the pandemic started. I'm in my 40. I'm going to be 47 November 1st.
Oh, I'm 47. Whoa.
Look at that.
Yeah.
So we some old heads up in here.
Yeah, bro. Yeah.
Representing though.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was actually hosting my nephew's baptism party here. Me and my brother were down here in my basement here, and he started talking. The topic came up, sports cards. At that time, everything like in the news, everything was popping off, all them big sales and things like that. So it just came up and I was like, bro, I think I got some cards still. So I went to my back room where I keep all my stuff. I pulled out my blue box and, I had all this junk wax in there. And I was like, man, he's like, bro, you might have something there. I was like, yeah. So after everybody left, I came down here, started, when you go on, you have no idea about comps or anything like that. You're just looking, you put in Michael Jordan, 89 hoops, and the prices that were coming up, those first crazy prices that you see was like $8,000, $9,000, $10,000. I was like, oh my God, raw cards. And if God forbid they were graded, they were like 15, 20. I was like, bro, called up my brother. I'm like, dude, I am paid, son. I've been holding on to these cards for over 30 years. I'm good to go. Not knowing that it's all junk wax, but that's how you learn. And after a while, I got everything together. A buddy of mine was collecting, and he did baseball cards. He did vintage. He was another mailman, and I'm a mailman, by the way. Cousin Oz, the people's mailman. So
thank you for your work, sir.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So I went up to my boy Corky, and I was like, "Yo, I got all these Michael Jordans, bro." I said, "You got to see my binder of cards," and he was like, yeah, "Bring them in. I'll check them out." So I was swearing up and down that I had thousands and thousands of dollars that I was paid. He looked at it. He's like going through it. He's like, and I was like, so what do you think? He's like, yeah, everything looks good. He's like, you got about $18 right here. I looked at it, I said, bro, $18, what you talking about? I was online, that's like $500,000 right there. He's like, nah. This is junk wax, homie. And he went through the whole spiel. And that's when I was like, man, I had to go down the rabbit hole and figure out what this hobby's all about. Got some money now. I'm gonna do this right. That's right. And I started collecting little by little, sneaking down into my basement, my wife not knowing what I'm doing. So I'm getting all these cards and, I'm just down here looking at them, enjoying them. And I was like, man, I got to get me a partner. And that's when I hit up Cousin Tone. We were watching the Sixers the one day and I sent him a couple pictures of my Julius Erving cards and some of my Barkley rookies. And he's like, what's that? I said, those are my cards. He's like, bro, you got those off of Google Images. Don't even play, son. I'm like, nah, bro. I said, these are real cars. He's like, you're collecting cars. I said, yes. And I said, you're going to be collecting with me too. And he's like, nah, that's a Ponzi scheme. And I was like, nah, bro. And then I'll let Tony talk about the rest.
Yeah, so basically and it's actually what we're doing right now. So it's during the Sixers season. I'll never forget. And usually during the Sixers game, which is happening right now, Oz, myself, and my other cousin, who's he's angry. He's always angry. He's the most angry Philadelphia fan I know. And we're going through this back and forth. And he sends a picture of these cars. I'm like, dude, whatever, man. You're not. That's stupid. And he's like, watch, I'll show you. So basically, the next picture that followed was Cousin Oz laying on the pool table, holding a card in his boxers. And I'm like, dude, what? I was like, okay, I believe you now. So long story short, you know what I mean? He kept, talking about the cars till I finally gave in. I'm like, all right, let's do this. And, here we are. And as far as what I collect personally, it's twofold, two players, basically. It's Roberto Clemente and Randall Cunningham.
Oh, great. Oh, wow.
So that's, so one is one extreme to the other. One is, coming up. I mean, I got this is who I grew up on the 80s, 90s Eagles. And I actually just started collecting Randall. At first, when I first got in, it was Jordan, and you learn quickly that, you got to have deep pockets to be in that Jordan pool.
Mm-hmm.
So needless to say that ship has sailed for a little bit. But and then it's just now I'm doing Clemente and Cunningham.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. What about you, Cousin?
Yeah, it started with Allen Iverson. So I had to look again, same thing. I was like, man, I'm gonna do this right. Michael Jordan's the way to go, and we'll get into that a little bit later when we start talking, about goats.
Yeah.
But again, those prices, we're not millionaires. Again, I'm a mailman, so I'm making decent money, but I ain't making that millionaire money.
I agree. Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I can only get the junk wax Jordans for Gem Mint 10s that I could afford. That's about it. So Iverson was the way to go. That was my man growing up, and so I said, let me all the '90s inserts that Jordan's famous for, the jambalayas, and and all those. I'm still working on trying to get a PMG. Them Jones are expensive.
Yeah.
But that's
cool about the hobby though. I always love that you can collect what you like. Both of you have talked about the players that you like. And you can always work your way up to something that you desire later.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's cool about the hobby. I'm from Chicago. I'm going to tell you the truth. I don't have a lot of Michael Jordan in my collection because of what you just talked about. I mean, the prices have always been beyond where I was at the time. Yeah. And I had to just come to grips with that. Like, at this point, I could go out and buy 86 Fleer in some grade. But I always ask myself, I believe in a maturation model that I don't even really share with a lot of people on how cars go. Cars start out a certain way. Like there was a story about the Steph Curry National Treasures out of 99. That car's over $1 million right now. And for probably about the first 4 years of his career, that car was $500.
Mm-hmm.
And every car goes through that. Every car that we can think of, there was a Luca BGS Gold 9 that just sold for $400, I think $25,000, something like that. I can remember, I know the person who purchased it when that car was a lower 5-figure car. So everything has a maturation cycle to it. When do you want to jump into that cycle is what I think about. Yeah. And sometimes if you can find the right player, we all know if you really want cars to go to the stratosphere, it's about finding a certain player and riding that player out. Right. We're all looking for that player. In the meantime, we're collecting who we like to see play. When you talk about Roberto Clemente, the film that I've seen, the man is legendary. What he stood for, what he died doing, he didn't have to do. Randall Cunningham, I grew up watching. He's a phenomenal player. Even when Randy Moss got a little bit of taste of that when he was in Minnesota, he's a phenomenal player. You know what I'm saying? Then we started talking about Allen Iverson, who revolutionized a lot of the game, a lot of the swag in the game that players have now. I hope they know where that came from.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what the hobby's all about.
Yeah. With the Randall thing too, it was when he got that taste of Randy Moss, it just, to me, it cut deep because our coach didn't care about that stuff, man. He was defensive. Buddy Ryan, Chicago, I'm pretty sure and he didn't care. And man, when I saw him in Minnesota, I'm like, oh man, we had Chris Carter, but Chris Carter was not the same person.
It was not the same Chris Carter.
He's a different person. So, but and just, you asked us here, what the pride of our PC is. And my two pieces, the one is, and it's not a game worn, but it's just something that I have one jersey in my wardrobe, and it's the Randall Cunningham jersey with the Jerome Brown patch. And I was able to find that. Yeah, it's a 101, and it's not game worn or anything, but when I saw it, I'm like, yeah, I gotta have that. And there it sits. And then this, the Roberto Clemente. It took me, like you said, you talk about the maturation process. It took me a while to get to this guy, but there it is. And like you said, it's just now I look at these two pieces and they make me smile, and that's what the hobby's about. So
that is what it's all about. So I always like to talk strategy with people on how they go about buying cars. Could you all share just some of the thought processes that you go through, and maybe things you look at, or what's your A to Z? A, I'm thinking about buying a car. Z, I'm about to make this purchase. How you get there?
For me, it's and I learned it's funny because I think when you learn the hard way, it's the best way to learn. Like, you got to make those mistakes early on, be it you're buying stuff because you think that it's going to be worth $1 million later on. And you learn that you didn't even like the card. So that's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely, man, I'm like, this Clemente, before I bought it, I easily looked at 500 copies. Just I learned that card. I became obsessed with it, to be honest. But obsessed with learning about it, learning what to look for, what not, things like that, and the values. Obviously, you want to learn that.
Yeah.
And education is it's huge, man. Avoiding those emotional buys. Yeah, I mean, because sometimes you will see, okay, but damn, just you got to really step back, think about it. But yeah, I think like the longer, the more methodical you are about it, the better the purchase is probably going to be.
I totally agree with you. I can look at stuff. Some people say, well, FD, you may look at things too long. But there's some cars I've tracked for over a year.
Listen, we just went on vacation, me and the wife, and I'm notorious for going to the shop, the show, whatever, and not buying anything. And we went into the Loop store. It was in Miami, and we walked in, and I'm looking. I left, nothing. She goes, "You never buy anything." I was like, "It's just I can't explain it. Like I don't know. I'm very particular about what I want, and I think it's better than just going in there all willy nilly and just making it rain."
I think that's one of the best policies I have. I like to go to shows sometimes and turn the buy-in side of my head off. And just really look around, look at cars, and ask a lot of questions and see what I learned today. Because every show I go to, anytime I'm around cards, anybody I'm talking to, there's going to be something I'm about to learn that day. I never walk around thinking I know everything about football, basketball, soccer, boxing, cars, anything. I don't know everything. So I'll start asking questions, and then somebody tell me something. I'm like, oh, really? Then you kind of put that into your index, and you keep that so something else comes up.
Yeah. And for me, especially, I have to be moved by that particular piece, whatever it is, whether it's a card, whether it's memorabilia, whether it's a Funko Pop, whatever it is that I'm interested in buying at that time. If I look at that card, I gotta get the feels for it, and it has to just like catch my eye. There was certain things when I was at the National, cousin Tony and I, we were walking around for 2 days straight and we didn't purchase anything. And then I just came across a Julius Erving and a Bill Russell, and again, this isn't nothing special, but they just caught my eye. Like, this is the Julius Erving. It's a die cut, and it's has his all-time 4 signatures, so it's gold signature there. Yeah. And the thing with this, he's in his Massachusetts uniform, so I think this was 2013 Upper Deck, and I believe they had lost their license at the time for basketball. I think that's when Prism, Panini, and then the Bill Russell. And this was the day before he had passed away. So, I picked these two up. I'm going through case by case by case, and they were next to each other, and they just caught my eye. I said, damn, those signatures in the gold, the die cut.
Sorry.
You're right there.
It's all good.
I was like, ooh.
So, yeah, they just caught my eye. So that's how it is. It just has to be something that I know that if I buy that particular item, when I take it home, I'll be like, yeah, that's dope. But my thing is narratives in the hobby period, whether that's in baseball, or basketball or even football, just prospecting period. And the amount that people pay for these cards, these rookie cards. And I always tell Tony, the pay does not match the play. These guys, you're paying exorbitant amounts of money, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. And if God forbid you get, National Treasure's rookie card with the patch and the whole nine on card auto, 50,000, 80,000. And these dudes never won championships.
Never.
They might have made one All-Star game.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what?
Don't play any
and then you have the GOATs and not even touching those types of prices. And the hobby's upside down. And I don't get it. I really don't. I mean, I do, but I don't.
Yeah.
It's rough. It's different.
Yeah.
I remember I tell this story sometimes a couple of years ago. Excuse me, when Lonzo Ball was still in LA. I went to an autograph signing of Kareem. Kareem was there, signing autographs. Few people in line. I think when I was there, he may have had 35 people in line, something like that. And he's charging whatever he's charging. The very next weekend, Lonzo Ball is at the same place signing autographs. I didn't go, but I saw video of people wrapped around. I mean, people were wrapped around. And his autograph was like double or 2.5 Kareem's.
Insane. I think the only thing I guess that I would combat that point is like, all right, so if we were back in 1995, whatever, we would be feeling about those players of that day the way the kids are feeling about LaMelo and stuff like that. So sometimes, I mean, like basically, okay, would I want Larry Johnson's autograph or would I care about like I don't know, some Moses Malone, right? If you compare the two at the time, it's not even night and day. Moses Malone, way more accomplished player, but I would have stood in line for Larry Johnson. So I mean, I don't want to be the old man on the porch because it's but it's, I guess if I was in the same situation, as a kid, I would probably be doing the same thing.
So let's talk about the hobby going forward. I think it's a difficult question that nobody has the answer to, but I always like to see what people think. When you look at the hobby, 2023 is coming up. We're in 2022. 6 to 12 months from now, what do you guys foresee happening? What's going to be going on in the hobby?
Well, I see prices still falling. And actually, we were talking about this last night to Oz. I was like, you think that people will continue to buy? People are still buying but are they now going to, I think people are going to buy at they're going to feel they got a bargain and then just hold. And you're not going to see some cards. You're just going to put them away. And you know what? I'm going to wait till the next uptick. Because we were talking and Oz is like, yo, there's a lot of Iversons coming up that weren't available. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm like, man, you pick them up now, you just sit on them. So I think we might see a lot of that.
Mm-hmm. I think that's already going on right now.
Yeah.
Like when I go to card shows, there's some cards you do not see. And if you ask somebody about them, you will hear someone that's selling say, "Oh, that's at home in the safe."
Yeah.
So they agree. I also agree with you about prices continuously going down.
Oh yeah, I think that's just starting now.
A large part of that year. Yeah.
Yeah. I just think these next couple months, like you said, it's going to be, I don't know when the dip is going to end, honestly, whether it's going to be previous to what it was pre-pandemic or if the floor has been set. But there has to be, I believe there's enough people that there's going to be a spark, and whether that comes from fanatics or something outside of the hobby or influence or something, but something that's going to cause a growth. Whether it's going to be 6 months, 12 months, I'm not sure, but we definitely need something to spark it. And I don't know what that's going to be, but I believe it's going to happen eventually. So I like right now, you got to buy the dip. Now's the perfect time to get those cards. Like I told Tony, man, there's cards that I'm seeing right now that I'd never thought 2 years ago that no way in hell that I would even be able to get that. And now I'm like, oh my God, I can get that card right now. So get what you can get. And you know what? Even if it doesn't go up, if it's a card that you love, you're going to have a banger in your collection, and it may not be worth nothing in 6 months, a year from now, 3 years, 5 years. But just every time you look at that card, that card's off the hook, and eventually it'll go back up. But now's the time to buy in that dip.
Yeah, I kind of think if a card is rare
and
it's of a is from a player that is improving or legitimizing their GOATness or striving to do more. I always look at the resume of a player. Are you good on your team first? Are you consistent in what you do? Are you an all-star? Are you a Pro Bowl player? How many times have you been there? What happens in big games when you go to them? Do you disappear, become cast with a friendly ghost? Or do you step up? And when you do step up, do you help win? Do you minimize mistakes? Then you start looking at longevity, talking about Pro Bowls, talking about playoff appearances, talking about production. We talking about all-time yards or completions or receptions or home runs or whatever it may be in the playoffs. Reggie Jackson was missed October because of what he did in the World Series.
Yeah.
When you start building up that kind of resume, then that's when I'm really paying attention to you. So some things I may move on early. I have a philosophy that there are some players and some things that I may move on later because I got to find out more about that player. Some of the players we've already talked about today. Got to find out more about them. If you look at a Joel Embiid, you look at a Jokic who is dominating right now, and you look at Giannis, all of them are big men, but they're all players that need time and season to get to where they are. Now, who foresaw that? You know, who foresaw Giannis in his first 2-3 years doing what he's doing now? Embiid was drafted hurt. I mean, I watch old drafts on YouTube all the time. This dude sitting in his living room in street clothes, hurt doing the draft. Who thought he was going to be a baller? When he used to say trust the process, I used to say like this dude's never going to work out. You guys think Jokic got drafted second round? That was a ticker on the bottom of ESPN. You never saw that guy. You never saw that. So these are some of the top players in the NBA right now. Then if you go back and look at the draft where Klay Thompson came out in 2011, you look at the draft in 2012 with Draymond Green, you even look at Steph's draft in 2009. There's some players drafted in the first round that aren't even in the league anymore. They haven't been in the league for years.
That had $10,000 RPAs.
That's right. And they will continue to. There'll be players right now that we're looking at that have $50,000 cars, and then you'll look up and be like, no, I hope nobody bought that.
What happens to those people and those cards, man?
I think they just vanish because you never hear about them. They kind of just fade away because you don't hear.
Is that Homer Simpson meme where
just right back into the bushes? Like. Just never know.